Hello, grade 8 students. This is me again, Teacher Pao, your virtual teacher for today. We are now on the 4th week of the 3rd quarter in Mathematics 8. Today's lesson is about triangle congruence. We will discuss about what makes two polygons, specifically triangles, congruent. At the end of the discussion, you should be able to define and illustrate triangle congruence. Congruent triangles are deemed to be very important, most especially in construction, when we need to reinforce structures so that they are strong and stable, like footbridge, bridge, Ferris wheel, plant, and stairs. What do we mean by the word congruent? It means that one shape can become another using the turns, flips, or slides. In general, two triangles will only be congruent if they have exactly the same size and shape. From the two triangles shown here, we can notice that they are not in the same position. But if there is a turn or a flip, they are the same. Now, let's talk about corresponding parts. According to the definition, if all 6 pairs of congruent parts, the 3 sides and 3 angles are congruent, then the 2 triangles are also congruent. So here we have 2 triangles ABC and triangle DEF. Let's prove that the 2 triangles are really congruent. Is triangle ABC congruent to triangle DEF? To check them out, the corresponding sides must be congruent, right? So, we can see that side AB in the first triangle is corresponding to side DE. Therefore, side AB is congruent to side DE. Also, BC, side BC corresponds to side EF on the other side. So, BC is also congruent to EF. AC is also congruent to DF. Now, since the 3 corresponding sides of the 2 triangles are proven congruent, let's check the other parts, the angles. The corresponding angles must also be congruent. Corresponding angles are angles A and D, angles B and E, and angles C and F. So, angle A must also be congruent to angle D, and angle B must be congruent to angle E, and angle C must be congruent to angle F. If all these 6 parts of the 2 triangles correspond and are congruent, therefore, the 2 triangles are congruent. Now, let's have some examples. As you go through your activity sheets, you will be acquainted with problems similar to these. The first activity is entitled, Which are corresponding? Given the 2 triangles, we have to name the corresponding congruent parts. to visualize the congruence easier, again, let's turn one of the two triangles for them to have the same position. You have the triangle CAR and triangle NIG. So by turning, we made the positions exactly the same for us to be easily identify which among the parts are corresponding. Therefore, triangle CAR is congruent to triangle NIG. Now let's name the corresponding congruent parts. Angle C corresponds to angle N. Correct. Angle A corresponds to angle I. Side AR, here, the side AR corresponds to side IG. Angle R, this one, corresponds to angle G. Angle A corresponds to angle I. Side AC, here, corresponds to side IN. And side RC corresponds to side NG. Now, since from the definition, the two triangles are congruent, we can also conclude that the corresponding parts of these two triangles are all congruent. Did you understand? For number 2, the two triangles are formed by the intersection of the diagonals of the rectangle. So we have the two triangles here, and we're positioning them through turns results to this. Now, it's easier to identify the corresponding parts. Triangle OVL is therefore congruent to triangle EVD. Take note of identifying the two congruent triangles. The vertices and the angles must also be corresponding. So if you start here, OVL, you must also start with EVD. And the like. If you start with L, triangle LVO is congruent to triangle BVE. So what angle is congruent to angle BLO? So where is this angle BLO? Let's start with the first triangle, BLO. Whatever is the center, angle L, that is the angle being denoted. So angle L or BLO must be congruent to what angle? Angle BDE. Yes. Next, how about the side VL? Side VL is congruent to side VD. OVL, angle OVL, OVL. Here is the angle. Angle OVL corresponds and is congruent to angle EVD. We have the same vertex, right? Angle LOB, the vertex of the angle is angle O. So from the other triangle, the angle that is congruent to that angle is angle DEV, this angle. How about the side LO? Side LO is congruent to side DE. And side VO is congruent to side BE. Did you understand? Okay. For the next activity, entitled What's My Name? You are given the corresponding parts and you have to name the two congruent triangles. To do this, since the corresponding parts are already given, it will be easier to name the two triangles formed by drawing. So by inspecting, we have angle N is congruent to angle B, angle U is congruent to angle E, angle M is congruent to angle R, side NU is congruent to BE, and side UM is congruent to ER, and side NM is congruent to BR. So we have the three angles forming the triangle, angle N, U, and M. And another triangle formed by the three angles B, E, R is the triangle BER. Through checking, we can see also that the corresponding sides are the same. Like, side NU must be congruent to BE. NU is congruent to side BE. UM is congruent to ER. And NM is congruent to BR. Therefore, the answer is triangle NUM is congruent to triangle BER. So we're going to do the same process in number 2. Angle B is congruent to angle P, angle I is congruent to angle U, and angle R is congruent to angle E. Regarding to sides, side IB is congruent to side UP, RI is congruent to EU, and side VR is congruent to TE. So the first triangle formed by the three angles B, I, and R is triangle BIR. And the second triangle formed by the angles P, U, and E is triangle P, U, E. Through checking again, side IV, this one is congruent to side UP. IR or RI corresponds to EU, and VR corresponds to TE. Therefore, the two triangles are congruent, triangle BIR and triangle TUE. Lastly, the third activity, entitled Make Me Congruent, is asking you to draw congruent triangles with proper markings inside the box. And then you have to write the name of the two congruent triangles on the blank. So this is what I drew. When two triangles are congruent, we should mark the corresponding sides like this. The side marked with one line is equal to the side marked with one line on the other triangle. And the side marked with two lines is congruent to the side marked with two lines on the other triangle. And the side marked with three lines is congruent to the side marked with three lines on the other side. Same as through the angles. The angle marked with one arc is congruent to the angle marked with one arc on the other triangle. For the two arcs, it must be congruent to the angle marked with two arcs on the other triangle, as well as the three arcs on the first triangle. It must be congruent to the angle marked with three arcs on the other. Thus, triangle BAC is congruent to triangle PRQ. because side BA is congruent to side BR, AC is congruent to side RQ, and side BC is congruent to side PQ. And angle B is congruent to angle P, angle A is congruent to angle R, and angle C is congruent to angle G. That's it. I hope you learned something from this discussion. This presentation wouldn't be possible without the concerted efforts among the grade 8 team members. Here are Sir Manny C. Ancheta, Ma'am Reyna S. Corpus, Ma'am Ofelia B. Mapatak, Ma'am Rowena V. Palamin, Ma'am Mary Grace C. Talbo, and yours truly, Paula Bianca P. Cruz. You may now start answering your activity sheet.